I'm going to be really drastic. You'll be shocked. So would I. Hi, I'm miltonchang of Bonsaiheirloom. This is actually my favorite tree because I started this tree, I would say about 25, 30 years ago. These two are 1-gallon Chinese Elm. We went to Huangshan, which is a Yellow Mountain cliff, a UNESCO site in China. And I was really impressed by the pine trees grow out of the precipices. So I came home, I went out and bought a desert rose rock, which is from the deserts of Arizona and Utah. And then I put these two elm trees, I bought it from Roy Nagasaki, and put it down. The trees are actually not grown in the rock, but they are planted in the bottom of the pot, and then it grew into the rock. At that time, I anchored it into the rock with a nail, and then it came loose. But this one is actually totally into the rock. This is, again, my favorite trees, which I have shown on the video several times. So these are the ones that we repeat. So please go back and review the whole thing to get an idea of the progression of a tree, how it increased ramification. I would say 5 years ago, this tree had very little growth because I cut it back drastically to rework it. But now it's coming back quite vigorously. I have to do some drastic cutting. And I use these cuttings for propagation because I think Catlin is quite a desirable material. I'm just going to keep clipping to get rid of the long branches so I can see where I'm going with the tree. You don't want it to kind of get carried away working on the details and lost track of the big pictures. I'm just trying to remove the super long branches because I know I will not be using them, and they kind of clouded my viewpoint of what the tree ultimately will look like. So I don't really want to be confused with these long branches, and then I'll go in to work on the fine details. It actually looks tedious, but it can be done fairly quickly once I decide what to go after. And starting from the apex and work my way down. It would probably take 15 minutes to do a big one like this. Now that the big super long branches are removed, I will now work on the detail. To start with, I want to work on the apex. This apex is growing a little bit out of hand because it's now so much bigger, taller than the relative size of this tree. So for example, right now the apex is out here, quite a bit far away from the trunk. And it's kind of tall also. So looking at this, I would say I should probably make one of the bottom branches the apex. So now I'm going to be really drastic. You'll be shocked, so would I, that I am willing to do that. Well, I already broke a branch. So it's to cut off this branch altogether. Just imagine this whole top branch to start over again, because this is getting to be quite out of relative size to this rock. And in a mountain, generally the trees on the side of a mountain is never quite above the rock. So now you can see this likely to be the apex. Okay, and then this tree could be coming on the side, so it could be like this. So one other possibility to make this the apex, and okay, so this is closer to the center. So this is the apex, and so this part will grow up. Let me cut this a little bit to encourage the shoot coming out. So there will be a shoot coming out this way, and then I can make this the apex, get the apex there. If not, then I can use this part as the apex. So you have a lot of choices. Don't freak out in terms of making mistakes. You don't make mistakes because the tree will recover to give you the opportunity to rework it. So just be bold and do drastic cuts. That's how you can get drastic designs. So like this part, you know, if this is why it's getting kind of too long. So I will cut it off so that it's all nice and clean. This will come up. So now the tree, you can see it's not that tall, but reduced significantly relative to this. And then we can work the bottom to rhyme with this part, which means cut back quite a bit here and there as well. And that gives me a lot of design choices. So I'm just cutting back to everything to make them synergistic with changing the apex by reducing much of the branches. So for example, this branch is coming out and accentuate towards that direction a little bit too much. I think a little bit is good, but this is way over. So I think it should be more towards this direction. And then this one's even further. Look at this. This branch is coming all the way covering this side of the front. So I can choose to probably cut it off here. Look at that. This part will be bare, but will make the design a lot more cleaner. So in fact, what I can do is to take a saw Can you imagine that, using this saw on such a small tree? Well, because that's a pretty big branch. I'm making a drastic move to change the design to be appropriate. It's overgrown, you know. There's a tendency to not cut off long branches, and they get longer and longer and thicker. It becomes very hard to cut and out of shape. Then you rationalize to keep it, which I don't think is correct. Now you can see this tree is a lot more towards this tree rather than a branch shooting off, like going off in this direction. Can you imagine have this long branch coming out this direction? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a tree. It could, but this looks a lot more cleaner, and it exposes the root, the rock, to expose more of the design. I'm just cleaning up and thinning out so to simulate more a tree would look like in nature, but that's all. So just a lot of clipping, but do that fairly quickly because you cannot make mistakes. If you clip off less, you're fine. If you clip it too much, it will grow back. No big deal. But if you don't clip it, it gets too dense, and you can see the structure of the tree. You just see the canopy, which is quite common in bonsai shows, but I prefer to show the trunk structure to show the tree should look like in nature. But again, a lot of that is personal preferences. There's no right or wrong. Just do it the way you like it. So you can make no mistakes. Just keep clipping. My idea is to thin it so you can see the structure of the tree. And the principle that you follow is that most trees, most branching like to be in the same direction because they are following the same light. And if they go in a wrong angle, then you cut it off to give you a feel of more synergism or rhythm rather than anti-rhythm, so to speak. You know, I'm doing drastic pruning, like everything you do, unless you make drastic moves, you're never gonna get where you think is right. So just do it. If you have conviction that you're right, just do it. Just clip it off, and it will grow back to a better shape that you like. Because the tree will recover based on the laws of nature. And so it will always come out right at the end. The nature will take care of itself. So that's the beauty of it. In a sense, it's really following light and fill up voids to capture as much light as possible in nature And so it will always follow that simple rule. And that's when you prune trees, you should also follow that simple rule. Think of what the branch would do to seek light, and that's how you clip it. By the time when I'm done with it, the tree will look very bare, but it will fill out very quickly. I would say in 3 weeks it'll start to leaf out. In the 2 or 3 months, it'll be really quite full. You wouldn't think you have done the drastic clipping. So don't worry about it. Just click away. Actually, I'm almost got done on this tree, and then I work on the next one. The next one is smaller, but it's actually more challenging to do it right because I did a drastic cut to restart the whole apex again. So this tree, you can see I cut off a very big branch here to cover that covered this one. But in fact, I can actually accentuate this one by cutting off this one here. It's really a shame with such a nicely done branch. So maybe I should air layering it so that I will have a little extra tree. But you can see it's a lot more natural going up. Although, yeah, and this should be covered by the top, so it wouldn't be growing that well. So I think this part should go. In fact, if I'm drastic, I just cut it off right now and be done with it. Well, maybe to be on the safe side, I let this branch come out a little bit to accentuate this. Okay, well, let me sit on it for a little bit more before I decide what to do. Now let me work on this tree. As I said before in the past video, this tree was growing up like this. And I said, well, there's no rhyme or reason why these two should be about the same height. I need to introduce some asymmetry. So with that in mind, I cut off this whole big branch, was about this thick, and start this little guy, which is no more thicker than this on the side, start over again. So it looks a little bit awkward now, although it looks much more natural, more synergistic with this one. So now I'll work on this one to get to about the same thickness as this one. So when the two fill out, they will have about the same thickness. To tell the truth, I can't stand it when something isn't quite right. That's the perfectionist part of me, which I'm hardly a perfectionist. But this tree just doesn't look quite right with this thing sticking out below. So let me just cut this off, so be done with it once for all, rather than regret later, why didn't I do sooner? Okay. I can almost cry to cut off such an old big branch, but for the sake of the design, I think it's a lot more cleaner. Look at this. You know, rather than something hang off and block the view of the rock, now you have a much more clearer view of the rock. So I'm sorry, but you have to be drastic sometimes. You have no choice to make things right. And in fact, yeah, I think this is good. This is too far gone in the back, but that's okay. Now let me work on this tree. So again, I will start with the apex. I think the apex like too close. Okay, I'll make this the apex. Very arbitrary. So again, I'm just working from the apex down and clean up all the branches so when it comes out, it will be right, rather than too cluttered, but accentuate the design, the angles where the big branches are going and where to fill the holes. So this is a tree I was telling you that I was inspired by the Huangshan UNESCO World Heritage Site where pine trees grow out of rocks. So anyway, I came back and I bought a few Huangshan seeds that didn't really work out, but I went on to find a desert rose rock from Arizona and Utah, and planted 2 1-gallon elm tree, tiny little elm, but now look at how thick it is. And that's, I would say, 30 years ago. I did some drastic cutting to keep it in keeping with what the tree should look like. In this case, the whole design is basically 3 trunks. This one is here, then one here, there one here. And then I tried to cut back this one, which is about the same height. Both trees were quite high relative to the rock. I cut it back and pulled a bottom one little branch up to make it the apex. And now it's growing into a nice tree. So with that in mind then, this is the tree. And what I would do is I'll keep this in this for another year or so. And then what I would do is I'll take it out of the shallow pot and put the whole thing on a slate. And I think that would be very drastic. It's like, a slate, a mountain in a flat land, a flat valley, growing a rock, and then trees growing out of it like the UNESCO site. So the whole idea about bonsai is try to create the miniature version of what you have in mind that impresses you in nature, and you try to duplicate that. And with that, then you have a lot of freedom to create the shape and design of any shape you like, not bound by what you see in bonsai books. So with that in mind, then I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you enjoy your bonsai hobby. Please subscribe to our channel and click like if you think my video is informative and you like it, to give me some encouragement. And brownie points for that matter, I don't know what, but makes me feel good. So thank you very much for watching, and I see you next week.